To begin with, I'd like to let you know there are a couple of studies of ULI studies from here in Nashville that have been conducted in the past that you're welcome to come up and look through at some point this afternoon in the next hour. We will also have a question and answer session at the very end, so if you don't mind holding your questions till then, we'd really appreciate that. To start with, I want to introduce Rose Vegas Easton. She is the leader of ULI here in Nashville, and we're happy to have her and appreciate all of her hard work as well as the rest of the team. So I'll turn it over to Rose.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you. And thank you, Metro Council members. We are very aware of how very busy your calendars are. So we appreciate your time being here today. And we know we have an hour of your time, so we're going to use it very fastidiously. Given this, we've planned the initiative that we're going to talk about today, the Civic Leadership Forum, to be of really great value to the work that you conduct as your council members' duties. And we want your time here to be a really useful investment towards helping with your work. I'll begin our hour by quickly going over an overview of what the Urban Land Institute organization is, what we plan to accomplish today, and what the goals and benefits of the Civic Leadership Forum series are. And I'll just be talking for about 5 minutes. Then the bulk of this first session of the Civic Leadership Forum, you'll be walked through the fundamentals of the development process today. And we're laying that groundwork in today's session so that we're all on the same page for the next session of the quarterly series that will be held in August. We've built in, as Brandon said, plenty of times for conversation and questions. Very importantly, we want to get your feedback from today's inaugural session so we can weave that into the next session once again. So this is valuable and this is meaningful to your work. As Brandon said, my name is Rose Vegas Easton and I'm the director of the Urban Land Institute Nashville. So ULI Nashville is the local district council of the headquarter organization, which is located in Washington, D.C. Internationally, there's 40,000 members worldwide. We are a nonprofit and education organization. And the mantra of ULI is we are dedicated to providing leadership and sharing best practices in the responsible use of land and in creating and sustaining thriving communities. And among the industries and different metropolitan areas, ULI is considered a leading multidisciplinary forum on development, real estate, and land use, meaning that we come from our discussion, our issues, our research, from all the disciplines that go into the built form. We are not just a real estate organization. We are not just a planning organization. We put all those pieces together to make the best city. And the mainstay of ULI, the way we do all our work, is to facilitate an open exchange of ideas, information and partnerships among industry leaders, community partners, and policymakers such as yourself. And then our local district council, ULI Nashville, was established just 10 years ago. Actually, we're a few months from 10 years, and I've been there the whole time. We embody those same 3 principles of ULI. And then we add the ULI Nashville twist to it. So we really respond to our locality and we build our local partners. We started with very few resources, very few members, and ULI Nashville now has close to 550 members. And they represent the private sector, the public sector, the nonprofit sector. We have Metro staff, public officials, the mayor's office. We also have all the private industries that work in this area. ULI Nashville and its members are involved in many of the issues that you grapple with as an elected official. We work on issues of housing affordability, transportation, building for the creative class, urban manufacturing and the importance of that to our city, infrastructure and the like. Fundamentally, what ULI Nashville does is we host monthly programs. We educate our members and our community on best practices in the use of land. We also lead and support initiatives on specific issues like housing affordability and like transit. And then we offer professional development for our members and networking and all that. And again, we do this through collaborations and we do this through education. And in fact, we are fortunate to have collaborated with Metro government on many topics. Some of those are the reports that Brandon pointed out that you're welcome to look at, and those are also posted on our website. So we can get you copies of that if you like. But we received a grant from the Urban Land Institute to help us fund this initiative in working with you and building up a partnership with you. So while our membership represents all the industries that build our city, our work is based on best practices and based on education, not on lobbying. And that's an important point. I'm going to repeat that. ULI Nashville and ULI is not a lobbying organization. We are a research and an education organization built on collaborations and communication. So that's a bit what ULI and ULI Nashville is about. Now, why are we here today asking for your time, and why are we doing this? The mission of the ULI Nashville Civic Leadership Forum is to build Nashville's best future, and this gets a little wordy, by enhancing the dialogue and understanding between local decision makers like yourselves and the private land use and development community, of which ULI Nashville has a depth of resources on. This Civic Leadership Forum is meant to provide a setting, a schedule, and a framework for our conversation on all the issues that you're faced with. So 4 things that ULI is using our resources and our local member expertise is on: the fundamental forces that shape and affect the built and natural form, number 1. Best practices in real estate and land use, number 2. We're going to work on effectively assessing impacts and opportunities that result in building better places. And then finally, the important leadership and decision-making role of elected officials that impact real estate development process and the challenging issues. So we will walk through these in our quarterly session, and we'll use that depth of ULI research to support that. Now, it's interesting that we got a grant to do this here, but I should tell you that district councils around the country also have relationship with their elected officials and conduct similar kind of education, discussion, conversation opportunities. So while we like to kind of feel real proud about Nashville, we aren't the first ones to be doing this. We feel fortunate now to be part of the group, and we feel fortunate that ULI has supported us with a grant. But what's important in this initiative is that we make it our own. We aren't going to do the initiative that maybe Charlotte has, or Austin, or San Francisco. What we want to work with you on is what is going to help you the most out of the resources that we have at ULI. So it's going to be the Nashville Civic Leadership Forum. So this is how it functions. 4 times a year, we'll gather, we'll share ULI information to you on issues that are of importance to you. We'll use ULI development project or infrastructure project or housing affordability projects as real case studies for you. And actually, Katie Sheasley will be using one in today's discussion. Oh, and Kyle will be using one of those in today's discussion as well. And then thirdly, we'll ask for your questions throughout. This isn't a hold your ideas and thoughts, and it's a very casual conversation. We want to start that dialogue between ULI and yourselves. The next meeting, theoretically or formally, isn't until August because we're a quarterly forum. However, some of you may recall that ULI Nashville has extended complimentary invitations to attend our programs that we welcome your attendance at. So in fact, on June 7th at all morning, we're hosting a collaborative program on transportation, specifically transit and development. So you will be getting a complimentary registration offer to that. June 7th, it will be at Belmont. And that can actually be seen as an added benefit and hold you over until that August session. So we hope you'll be able to join us there on June 7th. And then finally, the benefits of your participation in this ULI Nashville Civic Leadership Forum. And the benefits better be big, right? Because you're very busy, so we want them to be of great value to you. The participation in this is really meant to reinforce that building Nashville is really built through understanding of issues and good partners, and we welcome being a good partner with you. So the primary benefits are facts and examples that we can provide that you can use in discussions with your constituents, you can use in discussions with one another, and you can use in discussions with Metro staff or the real estate development community. We can share with you case studies and information that should be of value in those discussions. Second benefit from participating in this initiative. Those who do complete the 4 quarterly sessions will get a complimentary ULI membership, a public sector membership, and it comes with all the, I see Councilwoman Allen is very excited about that. It comes with all the benefits of being a member of ULI, and we're pleased to provide that to all the participants in this. And then finally, we will be building a ULI resource library in your council chambers, and that was specifically requested by one of your colleagues. So it's our pleasure to do that, but as a participant in this series and as a, when you get your complimentary membership, you'll be able to take an even deeper dive into those resources that we're going to house your offices with. So with that, I'd like to point out on your screen, these are all of our members who volunteered their time to help build the Civic Leadership Forum for you to build our relationship. And we're fortunate to have 3 of our members specifically who will be talking to you today. Kyle McGavin with Market Street Enterprises will start, followed by Katie Sheasley with GHP, and Chip Howarth with Howarth & Stone. And then those 3 presentations will be joined by Sean Henry with Toon Entrican. And that will lead into what we hope to be a vibrant question and answer period as well. So with that, Kyle, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Rose, thank you. So yeah, as Rose said, the folks you see sitting up here and some other folks you're going to meet as this process develops forward are all ULI members, have been engaged for years and have seen a lot of benefit in the education that ULI can provide to people within our industry, and likewise we hope to provide that same education and forum for discussion to you all, and thank you again for your time. I know you're very busy. So this first session, we're going to real briefly touch on what is development. That might seem like a silly topic, but I'll illustrate an example myself. I work for Market Street Enterprises right now. We're a developer, mainly focusing on the Gulch, but the bulk of my career, close to 10 years, was in general construction. When I was hired by a developer, I pretended like I knew what development was, but as it turned out, I really didn't know what development was. I had worked with developers on developments for close to a decade, and some of the things that I'll highlight today are some of the things that I really didn't understand, even with that intimate involvement in the development process. So again, this is a basic overview of development, and the future sessions are going to drill into some more specific topics related to what Nashville, the growth of Nashville, and what we're going through today. So real quick, when does development go right? There's a lot of answers to that question. We selected one image of what we think is sort of when development goes right. You have this urban park, you have this pedestrian connection, you have a bridge, you have some public art, you probably have some mixed-use buildings in the background. There's probably some public-private partnership to undertake this this pedestrian bridge and parks situation. That's sort of what development goes right. We all kind of know that. We've all seen that in Nashville and other places we visit. But here's just a generic illustration of that. Development can go wrong, and everyone knows a bad development is maybe wrong, but something we're going to focus on today is more illustrated in this image. and the gentlemen are saying, I don't know, seems like a lot of work. There's obviously a lot of work has already taken place, and they've decided they're not so excited about the work that needs to take place, and they're probably talking about going to the House and doing something different. So that's more of when we talk today about when does development goes wrong, when does development go wrong. Not so much a bad development, but when people's time, money, and resources are spent and nothing comes of it. This image actually shows a literal hole in the ground. We're going to talk more about figurative holes in the ground. When time, money, and resources get put into something that never actually becomes a hole in the ground, but never becomes anything else. So metaphorical hole in the ground, not literal hole in the ground, is kind of what we're going to focus on. So how can this happen, and who can be affected and wrapped up into when things do go wrong? So this is a really simple slide. There's going to be a test on this at the end. Everybody take notes. This is a very complicated way of laying out the development process. We're not going to go into this in great detail, but it illustrates one key point that we wanted to make is these are, well, that doesn't work up there. The images on the left, or the tasks on the left, are what a lot of people think about. This is a development process. You assemble land, you turn land into something you can develop, you develop the land, you build the building, you operate the building, and then maybe you renovate it. That's sort of the flow chart that I think most people understand. One key thing that this image is trying to get across is to move from step one and step two in that process. You have to sell, is the word this uses, something to somebody. And what that typically means is there's an investor, and you have to prove to that investor that what you want to do meets a certain hurdle rate, a rate of return, that's competing against other potential ways they can invest their capital, right? And that doesn't happen once. That happens 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 different times potentially throughout the lifespan of a building. Again, there's other things these people with capital can spend their capital on. Bonds, stocks, tech startups, foreign markets, developments in other cities. They have lots of options for their capital. We want to do all the really cool things. We being ULI in general, I think a lot of Nashvillians want to do the really cool things that the first image showed, and that's the goal. But a lot of times you're dealing with a person looking at a spreadsheet and saying, what is that investment hurdle, and does it meet in that investment hurdle? And oftentimes, if it does not meet that investment hurdle, you end up with that metaphoric hole in the ground. So we're not going to go through all this in great detail. We're going to focus on generally the first 3 phases of this process. Pre-development, everything that happens before construction, a lot of the times before many people in the general public are aware of the development. Phase 2, which is development, which is maybe more what people are used to, the design, the permitting, the construction. And then real quickly, we're going to talk about operations. A development really isn't done until it's operated for some time, and you've worked the kinks out, and you've introduced the development to the market. You operated it and spent money operating it. So that's part of this early, this first session as well. And we'll get into some of these. We kind of have 3 key tasks for each one of these phases that we'll get into in a little more detail. So as Rose alluded to, we like to think of things not in too generic of terms, but actually here's a project we can sort of visualize as we talk about these concepts. We selected a mixed-use project in Seattle, Washington that, 1, looks really cool, and number 2 is kind of generic cost-wise, $16.5 million total development cost. We can all kind of wrap our minds around that. And then the uses are similar to what we're seeing. The mixed-use aspect of it is similar to what we're seeing a lot of in Nashville. The office space, the retail space, the multifamily. One sort of unique thing about this project, which makes it interesting to think about, is the land consolidation, the purchasing of all the parcels took place over 15 years. That's abnormally long, but when you're assembling urban land, it takes time. That 15 years is admittedly an abnormally long amount of time, but it's not so out of the realm, and you're seeing those kind of things in Nashville now, where people are acquiring land over years and years and years and trying to get their vision on a 2D map so they can create it in the 3D world. So again, focusing on the Chop House Row, which is, if you go back here, that cool little restaurant-looking building in the lower left-hand corner is this building. It's an auto garage back in the 90s when this phase development began. So where do you go from an auto garage? How do you get from an auto garage to what you saw in the last image? Before you do anything, you have to decide you want to buy the land and or buildings that are on the land. The first step is doing your homework on that piece of land or those buildings. That's called due diligence. If you've ever purchased a home, it was the home inspection you got. You received the home inspection, you went through that list of things. You either acted on some, asked the seller to act on some. Similar, but it can cost tens of thousands of dollars before you make a decision not to purchase land. And that's a very common thing, and we'll get into the finances here in a second. But what is due diligence? It's the building inspection. It's running through environmental issues that the site may have ever had. Was there a dry cleaner on the site? It's running through a conceptual plan with an architect. It's pricing that plan budget-wise with a contractor to make sure, again, it meets those investment hurdles that somebody somewhere needs you to meet. It's talking with folks like yourself. It's engaging the elected officials. What is this zoned for? What could it be zoned for? Here's my vision. Does this meet your vision and the vision of your constituents? Very important part of it. And then, of course, the negotiating the purchase and sale, which is kind of a no-brainer, but very involved. Who's involved in this? Everybody's involved in this. The neighbors and the local stakeholders around the area. Again, the elected officials and staff on the city. Designers, engineers are involved. Contractors are involved. Potentially capital markets, meaning, not potentially, capital markets, meaning your investors, and potential debt lenders. Banks are involved. Brokers are involved. Attorneys are involved. All of these people are involved before the land is even purchased. There's just a contract on the land. A lot of people are spending time. A lot of people are spending money. Again, going back to that metaphorical hole, it's starting to be dug. Even before the land is closed upon. In this specific example of Chop House Row, 4.5 years, roughly, of the 18 years. And again, this is a phased project, so that 4.5 years took place throughout those 18 years. But 4.5 years of effort just to acquire the land to move forward with this development. Cost-wise, about 30% of, again, Chop House Row, $2.4 million of that was the land, but roughly $250,000 was spent by an investor of some sort before quote-unquote development actually took place. $17 million project, $250,000 before it's actually a development. About 50,000 of that, so about 1/5 of the $250,000, was simply due diligence before the land was even closed upon. So real dollars getting invested, digging that metaphorical hole before the land is even closed upon, and then continuing after the land is closed before it turns into an actual development, as we think of a development, as most folks think of development. So where does that money come from? In the early stages, it comes from the sponsor or the developer, and potentially some friendly investors that they have a relationship with. You typically don't see a bank loan for land. You definitely don't see a bank loan for due diligence. Somebody is putting the capital up on the developer side, or again, a friendly investor with the developer, and starting to make those investments for something that may never happen, that may, again, end up that metaphorical hole. On the right, this graph is, at the end of the day, what a typical development project looks like in the capital stack. Debt, the biggest chunk, comes from a bank. Mezzanine, which is a different kind of financing that oftentimes comes from a bank. And then equity, usually about 20%, comes from developer investor. Before the land is closed upon and before it turns into an actual development, as we usually think of it. All of that is in that equity portion. You're not going to hit 20% at that point, but it's all coming from that first tranche from the developer and the equity investors. That money in that first bit of equity is the most at risk. This slide, we'll kind of go back to this a couple times. This is a quick illustration of a pretty simple idea. I can't point, which makes it a little tougher, but the star is where we are in time, and time moves to the right on this axis. The red line that starts up high and goes down low is the risk of the money invested. The risk starts very high. The money invested is the green line. It starts low and then goes up and to the right. So at the beginning of the project, at the beginning of this idea, conceptualizing a development on a piece of land, the risk is very high for the money. The investment is lower. Again, $250,000 for $17 million total project cost. Relatively low, but there's a high chance that something will get in the way and the development will never actually come to fruition. So what are those things that can get in the way at this point and make a bunch of otherwise happy, healthy people crumble up paper and look sad sitting around a desk? Again, capital availability. Can I convince an investor that my idea on a piece of paper meets their hurdle rate? Again, they're competing. You're competing against other investments, other types of investments, other developments in other cities for that money. You may think you have a great idea, but if it can't meet a development hurdle rate, the capital will not be available. Zoning entitlements. As we all know, property is zoned for certain things. Some people have other ideas of what that property might want to be zoned for, but you might be wrong because the elected official, the staff, the constituents, the neighbors around don't agree with you. That can get in the way, obviously. We see it all the time, right? Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Land encumbrances, easements on a property that you can't work around. We typically see this in the form of utilities, right? The storm line running through the property that is 50 feet underground and made of brick, and you just can't work around. A lot of these things, until you do your due diligence and do your homework, you don't know what it's really going to involve to make your vision come true in spite of these encumbrances. Again, the neighborhood view, the stakeholder view. What do people think about your plan? Your potential customers, what do they think about your plan? Environmental issues, again, until you get into the due diligence, oftentimes you don't know that there used to be a dry cleaner on the site. Chemicals in the ground, things like that. Infrastructure conditions, availability of utilities, availability of a road network to handle the traffic that your development's going to create. Market conditions, obviously. I thought I could rent this space for X, I can only rent it for Y, and it cost me Z to build, and those numbers don't meet up. And then obviously your purchase negotiations. These are the things, again, before a lot of the general public even know that there is that idea cooking. These are the things that can get in the way. We're involved, you guys are involved, we see it. But again, going back to Kyle McGavin 4 or 5 years ago, this is all brand new to me. These sort of, this degree of activity was going on, and this degree of capital was being spent before there's really a good idea that this thing would turn into reality. So where does that lead us? Well, it leads us to a best case and a worst case. I'll talk about the worst case first. The project is abandoned when cost, market conditions, or untenable circumstances prevent financial viability. Again, we like cool things. We like bridges that cross parks and public art. But if you can't convince an investor that it's going to compete for their capital, you can't move forward with it. The best case is by the start of construction, and really that should be by the start of design. Design, when you hire an architect, which Katie will get into here in a minute, that's really when real money starts getting spent. So by the start of design, risks are reduced to factors that have already been addressed and can hopefully be controlled. I should add hopefully in there as well, because you never really know. And then, of course, there's a middle ground. There's a yellow light. I've identified the risks. I can hopefully mitigate them, but I'm not ready to actually get a green light yet. I'm going to spend more time studying this. And those people sitting around the table with a crumpled up paper just spend more time at that same table and more paper and more coffee. But what we like, what ULI likes, what Nashville likes is when good development gets a green light and we can move forward. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Katie Sheasley with GHP Environmental Architecture. Her focus is on project management of development, of design and development, that whole process. So she's very qualified to get into this next stage in the game. So thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Yeah. Okay, so we'll move over to development. So as Kyle mentioned from the beginning, he's covered pre-development. I'm going to speak a few slides about development and then Chip on operations. But these are much quicker because I think you're much more involved on the pre-development side, so we wanted to spend more time on pre-development. So far as land development and building development, the tasks are sometimes the same and more in depth. So as he mentioned, we're going to start with final drawings and engineering. We're going to start with the architect. We're going to be spending more money because we do have a green light. We think it'll have the return on investment. Permitting will begin. The land has been purchased. You're pricing the construction. You're getting proposals from all kinds of consultants for their services and what that's going to cost. You continue in negotiations with each of your consultants. And then hopefully if you have office space to rent, you're already starting with tenant negotiations. You know what your project's going to look like, and you've started looking at, okay, what will the income be, and you're talking to tenants. You have to line up your construction financing, and then construction begins, and we all know pretty much what construction looks like. Once again, the parties involved are going to be the neighbors, local stakeholders, city staff and elected officials, all the different consultants, not just designers and engineers, but other consultants as well. The contractors, your capital markets, the brokers who've been involved with the land, and then brokers who are helping with the tenant negotiations, and attorneys. So back to the example that we gave from Seattle, Washington, here we're talking about 17 years of 18 plus years. And the total project costs, you've already spent $2.4 million on the land. The soft costs at this point are another more than $2 million, and hard costs are over $11 million by the time you've finished construction. So development, of course, is this phase is your largest investment. And this is the example. It's just trying to give you a little bit better view of what that project was. The white blocks are other buildings in the same block that were not a part of the project. So the orange, blue, and gray are part of the project example that we've been using. So the blue was that small garage that became a restaurant and some other cool retail space. So that was renovated. The several-story gray box was actually an addition. So this project was a renovation and addition, but the really neat thing they did was provide an alleyway and then a pavilion, and that brought together all those buildings and the whole block. In fact, it was so successful, the other buildings started opening up their buildings to that pedestrian area because it was so successful. So one of the things we'll show in some other photographs is, how much one development can make a difference in a whole block and a whole neighborhood. So as we talked about, you've gotten into the most costly part of your development, and everyone's standing around saying, well, gentlemen, there's your problem. Cash flow, it just goes right out the window. So hurdles, again, are capital availability. Still, environmental issues can come up during construction, if they unearth any type of environmental issues. Infrastructure issues can still come up. The market conditions can change even during construction. or after completion of construction. Cost overruns and delays, weather can cause delays. So all of those are factors outside of the owner's control that can be a big hurdle. And once again, this is just talking about the green line is the dollars invested. So it's pretty high now, but hopefully the risk is quite lowered as you've moved along with the project development. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Chip Howarth with Stone and Howarth.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Personal level, I want to thank y'all for all the time that y'all put into this. We spend a little bit of time here. It's nothing compared to what you do individually and as a group. We're very thankful for all that you do there. Brief moment of levity. So Kyle put this together, and very clearly, do y'all have this in front of you? Just so you're clear, don't go Googling red light images. That's a bad thing. Kyle found that out pretty quickly. So I'm going to talk about, yeah, he said, really work filter jumped up pretty quick on that one. Talk a little bit about phase 3 of operations of a development. At this point, throughout the process of a development, there's a lot of plates spinning, a lot of things dependent upon other things. A lot of people want to see, there's a lot of, don't tell me about the labor, show me the baby. Like, I want to see the results. Leasing is a great example. So before a lot of leasing efforts are done, people want to see what it looks like. People want to see it get their entitlement process. Operations is the same. What does that look like? Tenant improvements. Well, I need to see the overall site before I decide what I want my building to look at. And so there's a lot of individual tasks that are kind of waiting on precursor tasks to happen, but they're all part of the same process. And the parties involved in the phase 3 go from tenants to property managers, again, dealing with the neighborhood, your elected officials, the designers, the engineers, the contractors, brokers, and of course, no one forgets the attorneys. Key hurdles for operations of a building, hopefully Godzilla does not come after your building. Retaining the tenants, a well-done development has the opportunity to change the neighborhood, and that will retain tenants, but that's a very, it's a tricky balance. How well it's built, maintenance issues, whether or not the neighborhood appreciates the development, whether they think about it. That's a huge, and the local stakeholders, it's a huge piece. And then again, the market, something that we can't control. Sometimes the development is very well done. I think about the Rhythm over there off to Mumbrian. When it was built out of Buddy and the Rhythm, and there was one person per floor, so you basically had your own floor. It was pretty cool, but it wasn't good for the development of the Rhythm. So, and as we move into the operational phase, you'll see, on the x-axis, this is the time. So we've gone from a point where hopefully the amount of money invested has normalized with the risk of loss. And we're not, well, you want to be higher on the money, you don't want to be too far either way. But that's when you get to a successful project is when those two can normalize. The interactive portion of the program, I just made this up. So if you have this picture in front of you, what you're seeing is the auto garage before development and the Chop House Row development after. Anybody, a couple of differences. What do you see? Councilwoman Henderson, what do you see on the ground there right in front? A sidewalk? Sidewalks. Sidewalks, right. What else don't you see? How about a big old electrical pole right there in the middle? Who thinks that was hard to move? And all the electrical wires. The streetscape there, the ability to go bigger, the ability, having people walk in front of it. It's very easy to say that this development drastically changed this neighborhood because it was done with community involvement, it was done involving all the local stakeholders, and it was done with thought and strategically. And that makes a huge difference, and it did. It absolutely changed the neighborhood from what was a nondescript auto repair garage to what Katie said, other buildings were creating walkways in their own buildings to access the Chop House Row. Things like tax base, it will redevelop a neighborhood if it's well done. And that's the goal of ULI in general, and as part of this committee is to achieve that goal of doing as many projects well done as possible. Few administrative things. Rose kind of talked about this some. Couple of, correct me if I'm wrong, Rose, by virtue of taking part in this forum, you do get ULI membership. Did I say that right? So we have upcoming meetings that, I don't know if any of y'all are able to attend any of the ULI meetings. They're very worthwhile. They're very educational. A huge benefit to me as I am a member. And now we want to turn it over to questions. I didn't find this quote. I wanted to take credit for it, but I can't because it's FDR. But it's really well said, and I'll just read it. Real estate cannot be lost or stolen, nor can it be carried away. Purchased with common sense, paid for in full, and managed with reasonable care, it is about the safest investment in the world. And that's what we're trying to achieve. You know, it's an investment, so there's risk, but if it's well done, it can be a very safe investment. So with that, Sean and I will take any question, and the group will take any questions that you have. Yes, sir.
Yeah, more than a question is a comment. In the many years I've been involved in the council and before that in the development community, my background is in architecture. I worked for Hartford and Roberts for 13 years. What I find is that developers are not very knowledgeable about the dynamics of making something happen in a community. So I think it will be beneficial to your members for us to come and explain today how to better interact with constituencies and how to be successful in putting a project together. Because the one thing I hate the most is to see a developer spend thousands of dollars, like you said before, without having a sense of what the community is ready to take or absorb or give the community an opportunity to take ownership on the project by influencing the scope of work or the general guidelines or so forth. And I say this with a lot of love and appreciation for ULI. I'm the chair of affordable housing. You guys have many meetings on affordable housing. I was never invited to come to speak to any meeting. And many of my peers here in the council who are experts on their field, they don't get invited to meetings as well to share the expertise. So I want to help you and your members to make more informed decisions by giving people in the council an opportunity to come and share their expertise, knowledge, very attuned sense of where the community stands on issues of development. So that was my comment. I do appreciate you guys wanted to share with us your know-how, but I think we have a lot to share with you as well, and I just want to make that clear.
Sure. I'm going to give it to Kyle here in just a second. We want to act as a resource to you, and I'm terribly sorry for the oversight. We want to continue this collaborative relationship as much as possible, and that's the point of us being here today. So anything that we can do to make this more collaborative, we absolutely want to do. So feedback like that is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, that comment just made this whole thing worth doing. That's exactly what we try to do. What the point of this process is I know we're set up here with microphones and we're elevated, but the idea really was, you know, we tried to leave 20 minutes. We left about 15 minutes at the end, not stare at each other, but to hear from you all. So that's perfect. Thank you. Absolutely. Anybody else? We still have 15 minutes.
Two things. I will say I have been on the Housing Action Committee, and I'll take responsibility for not saying that we needed to have Fabian at that. I have tried to do my best to represent the Ad Hoc Affordable Housing Committee. So we've had input, but certainly, and I think we have worked really hard to make sure that council members are always invited to the big meetings, which include a whole lot. So clearly we can work better on making everything more open and making people aware of what all is going on. I mean, there's a Transportation Action Committee that many of us would, could certainly provide information on as well. So maybe just to send information out to the council to say, did you know these action committees are operating, and we would love your participation on them. Would be great. And then number two, this is the question I always come back to. you know, when, as a council member, we're approached by a developer and know that on the other side is going to be the community looking at protecting quality of life issues and things like that, you know, and we say two things. You know, one, we'll either say, tell me why the density needs to be this high, it seems overwhelming to my neighbors, or how can we make this include some affordable housing because that's a top priority for Metro? And often the answer that I get is, I can't make the numbers work. And I have finally gotten a few really nice developers to sit down with the numbers, you know, and show me their spreadsheets and stuff like that. And there's always these mysterious pockets of, here's the equity return that has to be 20% or something amazing like that. I don't know what other things people are comparing their equity options to that. I mean, you know, when I look at the stock market, I'm not getting 20%, I'm getting 5. You know, if I could get 7, that would be better than 5. So can you help us understand sort of what those thresholds are for equity and debt that sort of set how a project has to go? Because that's something we always bump up against it, and it's hard for us to understand what y'all are working with, so that, you know, we tend to ask for things that may be impossible, but we can't understand why they're impossible.
Yeah. So I'll get into that again. 4 years ago, I was a general contractor, so I'm not the most well-versed in development financing, but generally speaking, the most simple way to look at the potential return of development is, so Chop House Row, $17 million. What do we expect Chop House Row to net in year 1 of stabilized operations? So the first the first 12-year period that roughly 90% of the residential units are occupied, roughly 90% of the office is occupied. That's year 1 stabilized. Revenue minus expenses, net income. Typically, you want the ratio of that first year stabilized net income to the development total cost to be, depending on the size of the project, in the 6 to 10 range. That's sort of your blended average of what a bank return is going to be on the low-risk debt and what an equity investor return is going to be on the high-risk equity. So the bank's getting more like, you know, the market right now is in the 3 to 4%. The equity investors are getting more than 10%. It all kind of washes out. Large projects, maybe 6%. Smaller projects, Chop House Row, maybe more like 8, 9, 10%. That's a very simple answer. If you sat down with any given developer and tried to understand their spreadsheet, good luck. There's no, the interesting thing about development financing is it's still Excel. Everybody is still Excel. There's no like project software that everybody uses where you can kind of compare apples to apples. So it's tricky. I agree to understand exactly if somebody heavy in the development finance world is telling you something, to really stare at their numbers and really just get it and frankly agree with it. Because there's so many assumptions that go into it, and it's tough. So that's a lot of what we try and do is, you know, ULI in general, here are best case practices. We all hope as a community to find the right people to work with to do the right things, and those things will sort of work out in the end, but that's a very tough thing. We should have like an entire segment on that. I agree.
Okay, next I've got Councilman Cooper and then Councilman Pridemore, you're next.
Thank you, Brandon. Super quickly, thank you all for being here. Using you as a resource, being familiar with the ULI nationally and their materials, it would be a great help if there were studies, materials, resources, experiences, something that ULI has collected. I think in the preservation of character, in strategies for public and green space, and the encouragement of design. And then also, I bet somewhere in ULI is a comparison of development fees charged around the country in different cities that would save a lot of time for Nashville trying to collect this information, as well as the relative requirement for traffic studies and transportation plans triggered by denser development. At what point is the trigger? And then what is the response for incorporating those transportation improvements into a site? Once again, the ability to bring national data to the conversation, very helpful for Nashville. And I just thank you for letting me ask for this. And if you all can find it in all that ULI wealth of information, that would be great.
Actually, Councilman Cooper, I can send you a few things.
That would be super. Be very grateful. Thank you.
Just a quick comment. There are several books up here that touch on a little bit of what we've been mentioning to you, and we're going to leave these in the council staff office. There's a book on transit-oriented design, development finance, and several documents as resources that we want to leave and make available to you. One follow-up comment on the return on investment. Different developers have a different risk tolerance. And so it's a hard question to answer because some may have an ROI that is easily discernible and you can deal with it, others don't. So it really fluctuates by developer. Yeah.
I just wanted to add one comment to you, Councilman Cooper. So in preparing for this presentation, I actually called Peyton Chung in the DC office of ULI National and asked him for specific information and research. And you would be amazed at what he will find because he is their research person. Well, he was research for case studies. I mean, ULI has a lot more research people, but there are amazing resources in DC for any specific questions that any of you might have. So I just want to share that. Thank you.
Councilman Pradmore, all yours.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for being here this afternoon. A lot of my questions, were asked by Councilman Cooper and Councilor Allen. But there is one, it's not necessarily a question, well, there's one question, and that is going back to the percentage of cost or profit on the land. Is there not one standard for, say, a development, a percentage standard for a residential development before they even get off the ground that a developer would look at or feel like they had to meet before they would even?
To Sean's point, there is no standard because Prudential Life has a much lower expectation for the return on their investment than a wealthy individual in a city. A wealthy individual in a city has less capital, wants to see a greater return. Prudential Life has so much capital, they just need somewhere to invest it. So there is no one answer. But generally speaking, that year-over-year number that I talked about earlier from 6 to 10% is generally what you're going to see for everything invested in a development. And again, that ranges. Small developments, that's got to be higher. Gigantic developments, hundreds of millions of dollars, that can be lower. But I think that's the answer to your question, is in that 6 to 10% range, which to Councilwoman Allen's, that's kind of like your stock market number, right? That's like, if I'm going to invest $1 million in the stock market, I'm probably going to make about 7% return over a long period of time. So that's where that blended average of investment in a development kind of competes with the stock market. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, there had to be, I just felt like somewhere down the line, someone has some sort of percentage of, okay, before I even look at this project, and having knowledge of the investors, of investors and versus banks, like you mentioned earlier. So I think that's about as close as we're going to get. That's good enough.
It's a really, like Sean said, it varies so much by developer, market. What are you competing against? What can you make on the stock market, generally speaking? It's all about competing against other potential investments. So that's why it fluctuates from time to time and market to market. So
thank you. And next one is more of just informative. I don't know. I'd like to know why this occurred. Back when I was first elected, my first term, there was a ULI presentation, or it may have been a study that was conducted before my tenure, so to speak, for Madison, the Madison Community Plan. And I understand that I went to I think the final phase of the presentation of that, and I didn't know what prevented that, or what prevents projects like that from, I mean, is that just a suggestion for moving forward? Is that lack of investors, lack of enthusiasm from the city officials, lack of enthusiasm from the community? What could have gotten that program rolling?
That was a unique program. Thank you for that question. The work done in Madison was a unique program that we were contracted to do by the City of Madison and other partners they had. And forgive me, it was probably about 9 years ago, so I can't remember the partners. But that was part of a ULI opportunity called a technical assistance panel. And we were basically hired as quote-unquote consultants. And the process of a technical assistance panel is a quick 1.5-day study and immediate production of a report. So it's an intense charrette where you go in and you have an entire day of interviews, and then you produce findings. And that was generated by the City of Madison, and we were brought in by their request. So once the work of the ULI members is complete after 1.5 days, then it's up to the City of Madison. We deliver that. ULI that's not what a technical assistance panel is. ULI delivers those findings, and then it's up to the clients to do with that as they like. But by definition, a technical assistance panel is a very short, intensive study where you deliver a product, and then it becomes theirs to do something with.
Yeah, I think that was financed, well, by a grant by Metro, I think.
MDHA did some.
Yes.
There was the Hospital Foundation, and also the local Madison representatives who were interviewed as part of the technical assistance panel. That interview list was also created by the client. So we didn't have anything to do with who we talked to, who was presented to us to pick their brain. The folks that paid for the study are the folks who put together that interview list.
Thank you. And one other, considering you were talking about the advisory position, what about developers? When I'll give you an example. In my district, 5 years ago, I couldn't get a developer to even look at Madison, and now there's, it's a different scenario. And most of my constituents don't have a clue. All they see is what they saw in East Nashville. So now I'm having community meetings where I'm trying to defend that, not necessarily defend, but just justify, and Brandon, he's well aware of a couple of them, justify that developing is not a bad idea. But I didn't know if that's the developer's responsibility, or is that something that you all can do, come in as just as a supportive of the community to let them kind of educate our constituents that, this is what all goes on before this guy just doesn't walk up with a load of money and say, we're going to put, 500 houses here. So I don't know if that's something that's feasible, but that's what I'm going through right now. My district is they've gone from no development to different projects, and they just assume that it's just we're coming in there, we're grabbing all we got, and we're going to build some homes and we'll get our money and leave you.
One of the things that we didn't purposely talk about is the benefits of development. I mean, we talked about the process that a developer has to go through, but we really, and I know you all deal with this all the time, what's the community benefit of a development and how can you convey that to your constituents? And it's difficult, but ultimately there's an increase in property value most of the time, and there's more taxes being generated as a result of that coming into the city's coffers. But we're out of time, and that's something that we'd be happy to dive into, and other issues that you have in your respective districts. This has been at least a kickoff understanding of what ULI can bring to the table as a think tank and to help you do what you do. And we'll be here again on August 7. And between now and then, we'd love to hear from you. What are the burning issues you're dealing with? And allow our think tank group to work on those and get more research and help you. So with that, we're done here.
Thank y'all.
Closing remarks. I will be sending out, as I did for the Affordable Housing Program last fall, the complimentary registration for the June 7th Transportation Forum. That's a morning forum, so we'll be doing that. And then for follow-up, if you would make a note of my email address, it's nashville@uli.org. So for follow-up content you want to see in the August session, or information you'd like me to provide to you, like Councilman Cooper, between now and August, nashville@uli.org will welcome your comments.
So we had one last quick question from Council Lady Van Reese, and then we'll go to budget and finance.
Thank you. I appreciate the courtesy. It's just more of a comment. Just to clarify, there is no such thing as a city of Madison. That hasn't taken place since the 50s. So I believe that was actually, the report was issued by a nonprofit, the Madison Rivergate Chamber of Commerce, and their inability to execute the advice was not on ULI or the people of the community of Madison. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank y'all. Hot mics.
Hot mics.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.